Joining us tonight on In Review with KEIMA, KEISHA and David at 9 p.m. Recession in the UK. I think it's best we start with that because that link with COVID. Many people are saying that this was going to happen already. They're surprised maybe that it happened, but they actually hold the figures back. What's your take on this recession, which is mentioned now? Is it COVID inspired?
Well, to be honest, we expected a recession. I think we've mentioned, Richie did mention this earlier up in the year, April, March, that it's going to be the worst economic downturn. And it's been reported it's actually the worst in the last 11 years. And the last 3 months has caused a 20% decrease in terms of the economy.
Like yourself, Keisha, I couldn't see a particular problem with the way that the police dealt with that particular situation. The police have come out and said that as much so far, and so I'm a little perturbed by what the motivation was here. I think it was possibly ill-advised for her to have gone about it this particular way.
I don't know what ground she has to sue. She's not the driver.
You know, because she's saying, you know, she's
I mean, I don't understand. Why is it people aren't questioning certain things? I don't understand why would an MP use her position to raise a matter which is not quite, and I'm trying to be very diplomatic in my approach.
Yes.
It's not quite the issue.
You know, I'm grateful and I feel it is fantastic that a black woman is there and she's actually setting the stage. But I also put another spin to it that this could be another setup for a lot of people getting hurt again. I still think there are people sitting in that auditorium waiting for Hillary Clinton to be named the next president of America. Could this be another screensaver? I say screensaver because I said this, I mean, you didn't like it. Barack Obama could have been a screensaver whereby he covered and polished over what America is. Trump came and just said, this is America, boom, boom. And therefore, the Democrats actually ensuring that Sleepy Joe, if he falls asleep, they got someone in place. Because I think Sleepy Joe is not going to last for too long, you know? So therefore, Kamala Harris is set up. And it's the reason why I played that video. It may sound a bit like it was being presumptuous, but she could be the Jamaican-Irish president.
And if we had a Jamaican president, we would have a new war every week. Every week, he'd be standing in front of the White House, just mad, just what Russia said? Russia said something? Say it again, Russia, say it one more time. No, say it one more time, I'll match up your country. Say it again.
Hold your thought for some time because, you know, we all felt that, you know, well, personally, I felt that, you know, when Trump became president, I was in shock, obviously. But then I thought, okay, well, it was a setup for Mike Pence. And we've been hanging out for Mike Pence to take the stage, but it's not happening. So no, I don't think that's likely. Still, okay. I think she's just there to be the VP. I'm not expecting anything else more from her.
KEIMA?
No, I think you know, there's something mentioned about her track record in terms of her being a prosecutor in the past, and I think, you know, it's the Democrats picked her thinking that she would be a shoo-in and she would actually have all the black vote, particularly black women vote, and it's not necessarily the case because.
But as these guys are so much adverse of news, top CNN, top BBC. Listen, people keep saying that, oh, you need to go on the mainstream. What they fail to understand, this is the mainstream right here.
Absolutely.
In review.
Absolutely.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the late one in review with yours truly, Sylbourne City. I'm Sylbourne, you know what I'm saying? And we have an exciting topic, an exciting round today with my secret weapons with KEIMA, David, and KEISHA, where we're going to rock it. Now, I hope you have a good week and I hope it has been fantastic. I hope you have been enjoying the different dub plates in Jamaica as well, election, rocking. Those who are getting crazy over America now with Kamala Harris, they are saying, is she black? Is she Asian? Oh no, she did not say nothing about her father. Oh, many people are brokenhearted. Could there be more brokenhearted coming forth? if anything. What can I say? Also, we're talking about COVID. COVID still is there on its head. Unemployment, different companies, Marks and Spencer, Pizza Express, people losing their jobs. Also, understand that people are not getting fed up of working from home. People are getting sort of bit annoyed by it. And as well, what I'm understanding as well is that ladies or with hair are being affected by the jobs that they can get. But without further ado, let me take the opportunity to firstly introduce my first uh, person, guest. I wouldn't say guest, I'll say resident guest, which is KEIMA. Hey, KEIMA, how are you doing today?
Hello, Sil. How are you? I'm well. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, KEIMA, she's into HR specialist, human resource. She does many other things, and she'll tell you that later. Am I correct there? Um,
Yes, I'm into HR and also a political activist. Yeah, you're right. I'm in my hands are full. I've got quite a lot of things that I go on with. Yes.
so you're the political activist. What are you activists doing? And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce my good mate. You know, don't worry, Keisha, we're saving the best for last. We're just letting David sow his royal oats here. David, how are you doing, sir?
I'm okay. Good evening, both of you this year, and yeah, I'm great. I've just had a little workout outside before the sun went down, so I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
shining. I'm beaming. I'm
yeah.
good.
Well, ladies and
Hope you
gentlemen,
guys are good too.
yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Burton, Mr. David Burton, actually, he's a Mister. So therefore, he's at the top level, you know. So I'm so grateful that I'm a Mister as well. We're on the same level with David, you know. A GMC registered consultant, ophthalmic surgeon working in the NHS, working several regions in the UK, inclusive of Yorkshire. So that's David, my man. And next we have the one who keeps winning each week with this thing called Team Keisha. I don't know where this Team Keisha came from, but here we are with Team Keisha. Keisha, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy to be back again, Sylbourne.
Oh wow, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, a proud mom of one and wife, background in a number of disciplines, law and international development. Sometimes she says, still I don't know what to say. I'm all these things. And I said, data protection practitioner, entrepreneur, director of said, what am I? What am I? And I said, excuse me, you are everything. You are everything. So, guys, listen, I'm excited because I tell you why I'm excited because the views are climbing up on this show. But most importantly, I think it is so important that we are able to create our own narratives because if you look each day on the news, you see different persons creating their own narratives, and we are one with those narratives. So I say we must be able to create our own narratives as well, and that's one of the reasons why I created this platform and having these key persons, top CNN, top all these different places, and are the secret weapons for SYLBOURNE TV. Am I correct, guys?
Correct.
Correct,
Correct.
correct,
Completely.
correct. And of course, for guests, Diane Murray, Knight, say Knight, and James Singleton. You to me everything. Wow, wow. So we got the dream team on at the other side. So guys, listen. This week has been packed with so many different things out there in the news, and I know I normally start with COVID-19 with an update, but I wanted to go first with the whole issue regarding unemployment because we are seeing somehow with the kickback effect of COVID, you're having what they call inspired unemployment as a result of COVID, with Marks and Spencer shedding a lot of jobs, and I think Pizza Express, great, fantastic jazz restaurants and play jazz right through, is I believe closing around 73 stores. Um, okay, we keep touching on unemployment all the while. What's happening? Where do you think we're going with this now? I mean, it seems like it's increasing.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, things have and will continue to get worse. I think in regards to sort of the economy, we know the furlough scheme's coming to an end. We know that businesses that are already in sort of hot water um, are really being tested by COVID,
Yeah,
and so we're going to find that there's going to have to be this transformation of the workforce that's out there into other particular roles to sort of cover their household income that's the shortfalls. So this isn't shocking, but I do think it's going to be cyclical. I think things will pick up once we're in obviously a better state. Businesses will be back, and we'll take it from there.
KEIMA?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I think it's not long left before the furlough scheme come to an end, and so I think naturally there's going to be some more big companies, well-known companies that we know of that will be shedding some more jobs. We heard that of Debenhams as well, one being one of these companies that we so love and we hear about, but they're doing some restructuring. So it's not all the jobs that's going, but it's just having to respond to the economic climate that we are in. Of course, we already knew that some companies were already struggling with the high cost of rent, and probably now is the time to review that and probably look at to see whether it's necessary to have all of these big stores. So a lot of companies are looking at that, but there are some good companies out there as well. Dr. Martin, who actually refund the government back the furlough money because they're doing so well as a result, and the business are actually picking up. So I was quite pleased this week to hear some positive news, and I'm sure there's others out there from some other companies, but we're going to hear some more negative news in terms of the number of job losses for the next couple of months, I reckon, until the end of their furlough scheme, because by then companies will be a lot more certain in terms of where the long-term trajectory will be. And so it's disappointing in in one hand, but I think going forward we'll see that picking up.
And KEISHA?
Yes, absolutely. KEIMA and David, actually, they're referring specifically to what's happening in the UK, but this is also a global crisis. We have to remember that the COVID crisis didn't just affect the UK, it affect so many different parts of the world. And so we're looking at a global workforce that's actually at the risk of significant job losses. And so we have to think about as a community or as a people within the UK, the risk and the impact that will have on international development aid and so on. So that is something that we will need to actually be mindful forward. So this crisis is not only about the UK, but we will have to be mindful about what's happening around the world.
It's interesting. It's interesting when I look at the figures, and I was looking at, say, for instance, Pizza Express, which says announced its intention to permanently close 73 of its restaurants. I used to work there when I was a student, affecting 1,100 employees as part of a major restructuring. So we're talking about 1,100 employees losing their jobs there. 1,100. Marks and Spencer got 7,000 over the next 3 months. Normally you say, okay, that was 3 months is really not long time. What with these persons now losing their jobs, what do you think about what they're going through now? I mean,
whereas, in the short term, of course, it's going to be difficult. Anybody coming up to the perspective of losing their jobs and not being aware, not able to plan anything, it's going to come as a shock to them naturally. But I always say at the end of it, sometimes it's probably having to go through a very tough time to come out on the other end. And I think it's an opportunity, if you look at it, to try something else new, or probably retrain into another career that you might wish to. And so in terms of it, in the short term, it might seem very negative, but in the long term, it might work out for the best for individuals.
Is it that now people now have to think about the type of profession that they go in, to think about the type of jobs that they take now, because really and truly they're realizing that there's no guarantee. David, I mean, is that what we're talking about? I mean, we talk about this a lot, but it's like when it hits home and it hits a fan. I don't want to say what hits the fan, what I mean? But
I think it's difficult though, Sylbourne, in terms of applications that are out there. There aren't any cast iron guarantees that any job is particularly secure. So when looking at the lay of the land, you can put all your eggs in one basket. But I don't think that's the way forward. It's probably best and more prudent to be flexible in the workforce in itself, because at times like this, it really does will prove beneficial. And if you were to look at, say, one particular area, for example, my field, medicine, if everybody decided that they wanted to become a doctor, there would be nobody to do the other jobs that are there. And I know that wouldn't happen, but the point I'm trying to make is, again, no particular group of jobs that are out there are safe and secure. I think that with this, as Keima has just touched on, there's space for opportunity. There's two ways of looking at this, with fear and anxiety, or opportunity and creativity. And I think that if you try and take that positive kind of mental approach to the way that we find ourselves, then it's obviously going to put you in a good stead. And it is the big businesses that are suffering at this moment in time. And one story I'd like to share is that it's thought that the smaller sort of businesses are going to be flourishing a lot more in the smaller towns, because people will be working from home and therefore utilizing the smaller businesses that are out there. So, it's horses for courses. Things will take transition and take time to sort of pan out. But I do think that people will adapt, and we do that very well. We're humans. We adapt very well to the circumstances over time. So I approach this with a degree of positivity. Obviously, it's a horrible sting. It's not great numbers, but let's be positive, and let's try and be positive as we can.
And one of the other things, I wanted to note as well, is that sometimes we get caught up thinking it's the companies that are letting off people as well. But I think the furlough scheme in some ways has put things into perspective for a lot of people. And some people are thinking, well, not necessarily this job is not probably right for me. And they're actually coming to terms with that and making that decision for themselves that, this is not the right job for me and I want to do something else differently. So there are a lot of people who are actually doing that, using this opportunity now, looking at the time now to reflect and thinking, I've spent a long time in this particular job that I'm not comfortable with, that I'm not happy with. Yeah. And probably the furlough scheme, being at home, give a lot of people time to reflect and review and think to themselves, what are they going to go do going forward? Some people want to start their own business, and probably the ideal time now is to reflect and do that.
Well, I mean, if I was reading what James is actually saying, is a big change mostly laying people off. We need many more independent companies and small business. I've been beating a certain drum as to what our government needs to be doing in relation to jobs. What do you think the government can do in relation to jobs, really? Can they do anything? Can the government do anything about jobs when it comes on? I mean, we're not in a socialist country whereby everything is controlled, nationalized. This is a capitalist country whereby.
Sure. I guess for public services, it's about protecting those jobs, trying to make sure there's incentives for people to want to join in those particular, because that's what the government really has a say-so with. With regards to the influences of bigger businesses, it's trying to make it enticing for them to maybe keep people on as best they can. We've seen with the furlough scheme that they've tried that. We've seen with sort of tax breaks. We've seen with the eat out to scheme that's trying to entice businesses to keep on going throughout this tough period. So I think they're trying their best in one regard. I think we got to rely on ourselves to try and promote and push the way that we can endeavor and go about things. But I think there's a lot of money that was given through the furlough scheme, a lot of money. So I don't know what more can be thrown at it in that regard.
I have a guest coming on tomorrow night, a lady named Olivia Jennings, and she was she lost her job during the course of the pandemic, but she has a story tomorrow to tell about how she had to innovate and do her own stuff. While we're doing a test today, she said, "I'm sorry, I've got to go to do the bit what she's doing, the new stuff that she has done." So a lot of people have to find themselves being more creative and more innovative as a result of that. I mean, here I am. I'm being innovative as well, trying to make sure so I can make some money tonight. I mean, if David can give me 10p.
Every mickle make a muckle.
Every mickle make a muckle. You're saying something, KEISHA. You're about to say something.
Yeah, I just thought there was just one more point that we probably need to add to this matter, and that is people do need to be empowered as well. So there are some people who are feeling, as I said a few weeks ago, completely disenfranchised by what's happening around them. Some people are actually feeling, disconnected, unable to find their way, don't know what's their next move. And I think this is a time for career coaches, life coaches, people who are knowledgeable as to how to help someone out of the situation they're in, to step in and provide advice. Many years ago, when I was, made redundant from my first job, I thought that was completely the end of the world, and I was completely went into what I say, lower, depression mode, because I thought that was it, and then clearly an opportunity came for me again, and I rise above that. But at this time, I could only imagine that some people are feeling or facing that perhaps, this is it. They don't know how to get out of this, especially if someone has been in an employment, that particular job for a very long time. They're probably questioning their ability and themselves at the moment. And so, as I suppose, maybe one thing that the government is doing, and I believe a few months ago they were talking about having career coaches, but I think they do definitely need people to come on board to actually help people who are actually in this situation, who somehow don't know what direction to take, given a circumstances where they find themselves out of employment.
KEIMA, you're in HR. When something like this happens and you got to speak to staff to say, "Listen, guys, we've got to go." What is it like? What's the sort of circumstance like if you're going to do that? To say we got to shed some staff because of keeping the company afloat.
Yeah, well, of course, it does depend on a number of people that you are, for example, letting go or making redundant. But I think the conversations are never easy for anybody on the other end who are having to have those conversations. I think the conversations, once they're fair and transparent and people are able to ask as many questions as possible, it always helps. And when people realize that it's a business decision, it's nothing personal, it's not about the person's performance, I think you make those conversations a lot easier to be had. And at the end of the day, I think people come around when they understand, the positions that they file themselves in, and it's not really their own, is because, of course, the situation with the business. Some people are quite happy to compromise and take voluntary redundancy as a result. Some people might just accept the fact that the situation it is and move on. But of course, these conversations are never, ever easy in terms of both parties. It's never easy for an HR person to sit down with an individual and having to go through those conversations at all. It's very, very difficult. And I think for somebody in my position, having to do that is always the most important thing is to be fair and transparent, and people normally take that on a lot easier than if they're not sure or uncertain that the company could do other measures to keep them on board.
Well, David, as we leave this area, what's your word of encouragement to persons who are at that moment, expecting the worst? People have their mortgage. I mean, I remember one time I was in a jam one time, and between contracts, and it was a sticky moment. I had to call the banks and try to get everything rescheduled. I almost had to go to court regarding house and everything like that. But, you go through it. I think one of the things also is people got to talk to their creditors, just keep talking to them as well. But what would you say to people at this time, David?
Without making this something which is not serious, it's obviously a serious time for people. This is though life, right?
Yes.
This is just the journey through life. You have your ups, you have your downs, you have your equilibrium, you have your balance, and it's going to be a bad time, but it's life. And there are ways of coping with things. There are structures that you can try and put in place. And unfortunately, sometimes even with the structures you put in place, things are very difficult for you to work through. But at the same time, you will make it through. There's a process, and it's a journey, and it's life.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is life, and we're going to go through. So one empathize at the same time with what's going on. Well, let's talk about an update regarding COVID. But before I go there, ladies and gentlemen, James, Dan, for some reason I'm not able to post your comments, but I'll read them at the same time. For some technical reason, that's not happening. Please, those on YouTube and Facebook, please, be grateful if you just share the video and like it as well. Share it to all the people that you know. COVID update. I mean, we're still in that zone still. We cannot get rid of that because I do my walk in the mornings, and sometimes when I don't feel like walk, I find something to stimulate me. And what stimulated me was walk up to the petrol station, which is about a good 20 minutes up the road, and have a Costa. and while having that Costa in the morning, because normally when I go to court or driving, I always stop at the petrol station and get my Costa coffee. But when I was in there was some desks, some tables for a sub restaurant which is inside there, and on the table it had these numbers and said before you can sit there, you've got to scan your phone, so they and send it to sub, and therefore sub somehow give you the permission to sit there because they are now track and trace you.
Wow.
You know that? Did you get that? I don't, has that
Uh,
happened? I'm telling you guys.
no, no, it hasn't.
Yeah.
It's a strange one because we were down on the east coast of England last week, and we went to a subway there, and there was no questions asked. It was just walk in with your mask. If you're eating, you take your mask off, but no questions. The biggest thing that we were asked was, we don't take cash. You have to pay by contactless. But there was no question in regards to who are you, where are you from, and they said we're not from the area, so we just went down there, as I say, for a visit. So no, I think that's interesting. I think that you are hearing more of this. I remember there was a story about getting a coffee from a kiosk, and somebody had to take their name and details a few weeks back. So it doesn't seem like it's across the board. It's very specific, and you must remember with Subway as well, it's a franchise.
Yes.
So
yes.
maybe some franchises are looking to operate slightly differently.
Yeah. But otherwise than that, how is I'm not saying like say I want to know how COVID is, but how are things going on? COVID, like Melvin Bridge, you know, something like that.
Right, best friend COVID. Well, let's start from a shake-up point of view. Public Health England is no more. The National Institute for Health Protection has now taken over the sort of biosecurity and health protection and track and trace program that's going to be taking place, and that's going to be headed up by Baroness Harding, who's a former TalkTalk boss, which is interesting. I mean, in terms of leadership, you want formal leadership, but I just wonder about the way that is going to be transpired across. So it's a change, it's a shake-up, it's a rebranding, and that's the first thing really. Public Health England is now being taken to a different heed really. And then the other thing to mention is, and whilst it's negatively looking at things, but we look at the number of deaths that are occurring because of COVID, and we're now at a position, at least until last week, now a position where the deaths recorded, all deaths recorded across the England and Wales, is at pre-lockdown levels. And in fact, we have recorded the lowest number of deaths per week up to last week than we have over a 5-year rolling average. So it means that in terms of the numbers of deaths, it's lower. And there's been a slight change in the way that the terminology is here as well. So we have recorded around 57,000 people have passed away associated, not from COVID, but associated with COVID. So there's been a change in terminology, a very interesting change, because weeks ago we would have talked about the numbers of deaths from COVID, and I was saying the numbers of deaths associated with COVID. So that's a very interesting way of looking at the numbers. But again, the death rates are down, and I think that's obviously a degree of positivity that we should take from that as well. As I said, well, I like to do things in rules of three. So I've touched on the first two things. The last thing is that you touched on track and trace there. Track and trace is still on the government's horizon. They've just pumped 2 million into a symptom study app that's ongoing sort of collection of information. And the Office of National Statistics has just this week expanded its survey. So the survey really looks at numbers of people who they want to test independently of knowledge whether they have the symptoms or not. So this is throat swabs and antibody testing. At the moment, they're testing around 28,000 people per week, and what they want to do over 2 weeks, sorry. And what they want to do is increase that to 150,000 people per fortnight by October. And so what that will do is will give us insight as to the R value. It will give us insight to the number of people who've been affected and infected unknowingly. Remember, COVID itself is an anonymous ghost. You know, a good proportion of people will have the virus itself, but not show any symptoms, over 80%. So the thing here is that we need to get a grasp on the numbers, and this will help generate that information. And so people will be contacted, and the current government is encouraging people to take them up on the offer of being tested for COVID-19. That's to be said, whether people will, but it's a big ask, and they say 150,000 people over 2 weeks. There's a lot of data that's going to be collected, and that will give insight to local lockdowns. For example, we're hearing that Leicester obviously is relaxing their lockdowns. They've been in their extra lockdown for over 7 weeks. I can't believe how the time has just flown. So this is going to assist with that particular local lockdown measure.
And it's interesting you say that, because we touch on Jamaica briefly a bit later, but the whole talk about the COVID is happening and the lockdown is happening. I believe in Jamaica as well. I read today that somewhere in St. Thomas they're locking down certain areas, and you got this election which is happening again, which is a level of concern. And then I heard last night the foreign minister was saying once the vaccine is approved and everything like that, Jamaicans will get it free, to be distributed freely. And when people start to hear that, they say, they want to kill off black people, that's why we're giving it free, Now, let's go to the vaccine. And I'll ask KEIMA and KEISHA to chip in later. But where are we with vaccines now?
So again, government is trying to encourage people to be part of their program. I think, don't shoot me, but I think there's around about 100,000 people who have signed up for this now, in terms of being part of this study kind of program in regards to vaccinations. I'm not saying all 100,000 people have been given the vaccination. What I'm saying is that they've signed up at least to the notion of having that be a possibility for them. Where are we with regards to the vaccine? Well, there's a vaccine race. You would have heard a few weeks, maybe last week, I think, the week before, Russia said that they've got the vaccine, they're ready to rock and roll.
Well, they stole it from the UK.
I'm not saying a thing. I want this internet connection to be secure, and I want to be here. So I'm going to keep talking as best I can. So Sylbourne, if you do dive off, we know what's happened. No, in all seriousness, I think we're pushing for the vaccine. There's questions about whether it will be done by this year, but the issue here. The issue here is that, again, I'm skeptical that we'll be able to get something by the end of the year. But we'll just have to watch this space and wait and see. It's going to be a real superhuman effort to sort of get something that is safe and effective by the end of the year. I think it's super tricky.
KEISHA, COVID been going around. What has changed? Anything has changed, or you're just still operating in the same reign, in a COVID-inspired atmosphere?
Yes, I'm playing safe. Still playing safe. I'm actually indoors working from home, and I know you might be touching on that later. And I'm happy to doing that. I only go out if I need to, and it'll be interesting because next month, September, back to school. So. That'll obviously more changes there coming up soon. So but at the moment, I'm still playing safe. I'm more concerned about what's happening around us. You touched earlier about what's happening in Jamaica, and then obviously you have the pandemic still going on, and so there's going to be an election soon. Likewise, in America, at some point there's going to be an election there, and I don't know. I don't think the figures regarding the pandemic there has gone down. I might be correct. You might correct me, but I understand that America have a high number of people still being affected with the COVID virus, and so I am just concerned as to what's happening with these pockets of, COVID virus happening around different parts of the world, but yet there are certain activities still happening. So I think there's still a balance where people still want to go out and actually get back to work, but at the same time, we still have that virus still hanging over our head, actually circulating around us. So we just have to be careful with our approach. But I know, for example, Jamaica has been very good at managing the virus, and maybe the government felt this is the right time to actually get into have the election. Don't think the same thing applies to America, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and just want to pick up here what Herbert from Facebook. Some merchants are reluctant in track and trace, and it's more to do with their profits. James, government loves to shake up and a rebrand. Okay, James Singles says, sign me up. Now, what did he say? Sign me up on? James, if you can clarify what
I
KEIMA
think
needs
is
to sign.
the trace thing we were
It's a
speaking
trace,
about.
yeah.
Okay.
That David was
Okay.
speaking about.
All
Go
right, well,
for it,
David
James, and tell us how it goes.
David can sign me up on that one. Roberta, my question is, how will they handle the crowds at the football matches whenever the crowds are allowed to admit? I think we're far off from that, David, isn't it?
Well, there's been a push from the lower leagues actually to try and I think this was quite right to try and encourage football fans back into stadiums. And the reason for that and the rationale for that is they're never fully, well, never to say never, but they would be able to handle social distancing, physical distancing a lot better than say a 80,000 seater stadium in Manchester or whatever that's going to struggle to not have all those fans present. So a smaller lower league club would probably handle this very well. So the lower league clubs, obviously, they require food. They need to eat. So what I mean by that is they need fans in the building to help them. And so I think that they will do very well. So maybe the Premiership couldn't take lead from that, but it's a very good question to ask how it will work for stadiums that are at capacity and such. We're none the wiser yet.
And James confirmed testing. That's what. KEIMA, how are you operating with COVID inspired?
Oh, there's a number of different things I think the COVID pandemic has alluded to lately. One of the things I must admit, because I'm somebody who never walk around with cash. So this is perfect for me, because you can even you can buy an ice cream now with your card. And before times you never used to be able to do that. So I'm quite pleased. I'm quite pleased about that.
That's how you cope.
Honestly,
you cope with
so things are working in my favor from that point of view. But I think on a whole, the COVID crisis is a global crisis, and you could see, as Keisha mentioned earlier, it does affect individuals and countries right around the world. Today, we've heard from the government that people coming back from Trinidad would need to be quarantined. I mean, from some of us from the Caribbean, we now be focusing in terms of what's happening in the Caribbean, how does that affect the Caribbean and the rest of the other islands as well, where we have a lot of flights going into Antigua. You have to pay attention as well in terms of the travel restrictions going back and forth. And of course, we know that those small economies rely on tourism, and specifically coming from the UK. So I'm always kind of conscious around what's going on there. Also looking over to America this week. I mean, we talked about the COVID vaccine coming out, and I know in America there's a race to actually get their vaccines out, but there's been a big dispute this week because we've heard several times how it affects ethnic minorities more severely than other groups, and in America they're struggling to get ethnic minorities to sign up to do for the testing as well. So that is sort of delaying the research around vaccinations. So there's a lot of different things going on in terms of the COVID virus in itself, and it's just sort of adjusting. I mean, this week I was also pleased to hear finally, and I've been waiting for the government to mention what's going to happen about churches. And this week the government says that you could now be finally able to sing in church, and it's not as severe. It's not as severe as talking as well. So finally, I think that's really good news for people who goes to church regularly. And I was kind of hoping that the government do something about that. But of course, the rules, I think some of the rules are still mixed and people are not quite sure. And we had in the last couple of days where the police have broken up several parties and several weddings because we have over 100 people showed up, because I think naturally people are trying to get on with their lives as well, but I'm not really paying attention to some of the rules. So it's a bit complex and sort of mixed messages going on in some areas.
Yeah. But if I ask the viewers, and hi Jennings family, mommy and daughter there as well on YouTube, I'd like to hear your views as to how are you looking at COVID now and how you are actually working with COVID now. Are you wearing your mask still? Because I tell you, I have about 3 different masks, and I got some Chinese masks still. I still have my Chinese mask because it come from China. C-H-I-N-A, China. Because,
actually, I was listening to Trump's speech the other day, just briefly, and I heard him say the China virus, and I had to go double check. I was like, anyway, just saying.
Yeah, because as I said, I bought these masks, and I was looking at Amazon, and Amazon said, the person said on the reviews, that's from China. Don't get that one there. This is a good one. And then I got the notice after I paid for it. Your item has been shipped
From China. Brilliant.
You need to read
Still
the small
efficient.
print,
Still
so-
efficient.
But it's very efficient as well. So I like to hear first because I do my walk every morning and I'm still conscious. I still walk with a pouch. I have my little mask in my my bag as well. And I'm always a bit very concerned when I see people not using a mask. And I've been to a couple of functions so far and still concerned how people are not sort of adhering to social distancing. And I said, I don't know, I mean, I don't know what to say. It's like, I might be scared or what. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Yeah, so we've got to get on with it.
I think you have to. I mean, you can't. I think with people should be respecting rules, etc. But there's not much that you can do, and you can challenge. I guess you can challenge, but I think you have to try and live your life.
Yeah. Well, Herbert said I'm a serial wearer of mask.
Well, I mean, there's so many different fashion, going on right now. So you could jazz it up a bit. So yes, wear the mask.
Okay.
But I'm saving lives by staying at home. That's what the government said. So I think.
Okay. So what I get is a SYLBOURNE TV mask. Then, if anything, guys.
Oh, that'd be
There
good.
you go.
Should Gavin Williams resign? The education secretary, with the fiasco with students out there regarding the whole GCSE results and the prediction and all those sort of things. Who is responsible?
No, well, should he resign? That is a very good question. I mean, I understand that he wanted to resign. He offered his resignation to the prime minister. The prime minister rejected it. And this is, as you said rightly, so civil. That's following the fiasco regarding the A levels results. Well, the A levels fiasco this week, and so because of this chaos that took place this week, he offered his resignation. Now, should he resign? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is just one example of the government being very much, let's say, very reactive in their approach rather than being proactive. So I believe that when the pandemic started, or when just before the lockdown, the government had time to assess a number of different aspects of within the society or within our community, for example. So they should have assessed the health risks, the economy, the educational system. All those factors should have been taken into account, and they should have actually had a more proactive approach. So given the circumstances regarding the A levels and the GCSEs and so on, they should have said, okay, well, the COVID pandemic or the virus itself will actually have a significant impact on our educational system. These are the factors we're taking into account, and do everything you can to mitigate this. This shouldn't be like a surprise to the government. Okay, and even that, given that they're here where we are right now, we shouldn't have been in a position where the government is saying, where the A levels are being, having to change the scores and having to redress the whole matter. We shouldn't have to be here because the government should have seen that, in hindsight, they should have foreseen the issues arising and mitigate it. So that shouldn't have.
Yeah, didn't Nicola Sturgeon ditched our nation's standardization, made Scotland's first minister as well?
Yes, and I think that's very interesting because the SNP popularity in the polls has increased, and people now supporting independence in Scotland has increased. And I think all of that is a result of the government seemingly looking incompetent right across the board, the way they handled the COVID crisis, issues around the medical care in terms of the number of individuals who have died as a result of COVID, but also this latest fiasco to do with the education system has been handled so badly. And the problem with it is it's the government arrogance and reluctance to actually address the situation head on. I mean, if you look at it, it shows very clearly that those individuals, students who suffered initially most terribly are those from the most disadvantaged areas, and it took almost over 5 days for students to have to protest, for parents to have to write to conservative MPs, for them to actually relent and for them to retract their decision in terms of having letting teachers' scores be used for the A levels. And that tells you a lot about the government in terms of where their priorities are. And it is very, very sad, because now people are looking at the government and thinking, really, we shouldn't have to go through that length. But for me, and it's something that, in terms of the educational system, really there's a huge, I believe, overhaul need to happen, because it's just this fiasco shows us that if you go to a school that is an independent school, you're far better off than if you go to a school that is a comprehensive school. We knew that in beforehand anyway, but it actually shows that people who can afford to spend money to send their children to school, regardless of what, would have better advantages, better opportunities to go to better schools and get into better universities. And so this part of the COVID crisis, as a result of the educational system, has really shown the very dark side of our education system. And I think the government really do need to address that. But as a result of all of this, Keir Starmer, of course, the leader of the Labour Party, has increased so significantly in the polls, because people now, particularly those areas who have lent Conservative Party their vote, are looking at this and thinking to themselves, well, the lens that we have to go through for you to retract are not easy. And, it's just question whether the government priorities are for the rich or the poor within the country.
If I put it there, like what James Singleton just said, is that they should have had the opportunity to still do their exams. Terrible situation, exams could have easily been taken. At the end of the day, you got persons now who are making assessment, because many people do bad sometimes during the course of the year, but they aim for that exam. Am I right, David?
You're right.
Sometimes people aim for that exam there, and then someone predicting based on how they're going through the year. Yeah. Is that fair or unfair?
Well, speaking of predictions, much like Dominic Cummings, I think I'm in charge of this whole discussion about education, because I kind of predicted this last week. I said
you did
that this was going to happen, and for me, going back to James's point there about the exams, I think when COVID hit, there were lots of different things going on at the time. A lot of uncertainties, a lot of worries, a lot of anxieties. And I think one of the things about pulling kids from schools was that this was always going to be a question. How is it that you're going to, in the biggest, I said this last week, the biggest exams of people's lives, A-levels, it really tells you whether you're going to university or not, or whether you have to take a different course through life to get to university or not. That's the big one. I'm not saying GCSEs are not big; they're big as well. But A levels for me were the big thing here. And so for people to sleep on this is a travesty. It is really a travesty, and it really has affected these kids' life. Now, I'm glad that there's been a U-turn, and I'm glad that there's a proportion of kids now. I say kids, 18-year-olds who are going to university. Yes. I think for me, there's obviously a question regarding medicine now as well, because there's a historic number of people that we can accept into medical schools. And because of this debacle, there's a question whether we can increase that number, but it's going to be upon the taxpayers to pay for that. And the government to say yes as well. And I don't know how that's going to be factored in. It's not that medicine matters than any other course, but I'm just saying that's a reflection of what's happened here. Yeah. But to answer your question about whether he should resign, yes. I just wonder whether this. I don't think he should resign. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna play the different angle here. I genuinely don't think he should resign, because it's a flippant kind of resignation. What does it really solve? It doesn't really solve anything for me. He goes. What happens with the kids? Sorry, for the 18-year-olds, there's nothing that changes with him resigning from that position. And I just wonder why it is that the government didn't have this in their thoughts, and whether or not, as we've elaborated on, whether or not exams could have taken place in some manner in a safe manner that was respecting of the exam itself, to try and get a formal A-level result. Yes, we do work on predicted grades. Those predicted grades are for universities to sort of assess, but the universities themselves want to have a particular grade for their courses, and that's right. So that's the difficulty here. I think there should have been a reflection, and there should have been an exam that was taking place, that was happily assessed by universities, happily actioned by schools, happily assessed by by the CQC to look and make sure that they were happy with this, and then move forward.
Hubert on YouTube is actually saying, I come to you, KEIMA, I think the government was too reactive in dealing with the GCSEs. There was no way the students would have gone to do their exams and not be concerned. James Singleton, I do like more supporting his staff. That is a good quality in a leader, because feeling you have got support when you make an error is invaluable. I want to go back to that bit about, and I'll stick a pin there, about making an error and U-turns. Was it Keisha or Keima was one to say something there?
Yeah, I think there's to an extent I agree. I think in some ways a leader needs support and back up the person that they manage or support, they put in position. But there's a time that you need to look at the competencies of some of your your people around you. And I think right across the board, and I think that's where the government is struggling at the moment, is in some of the key areas, the key advisors aren't seem to be living up to the task, and sometimes we need to be able to tell individuals that you're not living up to the task. It's a reflection on the government itself, and if you keep somebody who's not living up to them tasks, it also becomes a reflection as you as a leader. And sometimes you've got to take very, very tough decisions and let the people go when it's time for them to do that. But I think there's more of a tactical and a PR approach from the government, which is James Singleton has pointed out there in terms of supporting. It's giving that perception that he's supporting his David, but at the end of it, it's I think in the next reshuffle Gavin will go in the next reshuffle.
So what, Keisha, I'm going to come to you. So what you're actually saying then is, and David said at one point that he doesn't believe that you need to go. But Keima, you're looking at something else whereby there could be some trail of incompetence to Gavin. Is that what you're saying? Because May had sacked him at one point. Is it for something?
Absolutely. So he was, I believe, defense secretary before, and he's presided in previous governments, and he was sacked before, and he's been pulled back into this government. But it reflects on Boris's judgment in terms of the people that he has around him. And I think that is question Boris's leadership in itself. And Boris would have to take tough decisions to bring the credibility back to government. And that is the problem. That is what he's struggling with. And this education fiasco is a big, big example of that.
Keisha, because I want to keep going on to something, and Keisha, I want to bring you in.
Well, I don't have anything to add. I think Keima and David has covered it all. At the moment, how the government is running a number of issues, including the education system at the moment is not really looking good. So, it's quite unfortunate, but absolutely, yeah.
Well, I can see. Sorry, David, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry, I'll just add in that I think I would take the point in regards to his judgment if I felt that it was solely on himself. I just think it's the government itself who have collectively decided in this regard. I don't think it's a one person kind of judgment in regards to the educational aspect. I definitely feel that it's a collective judgment. I think these questions would have been asked months ago, and I think that it was just kind of, let's play out, let's see what happens. Education sitting on the back burner. We've got other things to deal with. So I don't think it's plainly on him, but I completely take the point with regards to his record. And that's why I say I don't think he needs to go, because I think it's a collective responsibility from respect to the government in regards to the educational aspect.
Well, if it's a collective responsibility, then we have a bigger problem here in government. We have a bunch of advisors who's not advising the government properly, and so that's to me is more of an issue. Yeah. If we can't say one person has to go, then if it's the whole government, then there's a big issue there. In my view.
But Keisha, Keima, do you think maybe you're a bit overly critical of the government in the sense that
Sorry.
we're in a COVID?
I don't know if she's functioning as a political activist at the moment or a HR practitioner, whatever it is, but she's hardcore right now, I'm telling you.
Well, Stillborn, I like to look at the facts. Let's look at the facts, okay?
Yeah.
No, Stillborn, let's look at the facts.
Yeah.
Right across the board, yeah? The health secretary, for example, we have United Kingdom being the worst in part of Europe when it comes to the COVID. So that's an issue, I think, for the government, and they need to put their hands up for that. Then we have this education fiasco where we seem to can't get it right. Germany's got it right. Scotland's got it right. Even, Ireland's got it right. I mean, it just reflects really badly on us. And then again, our economy has weakened dramatically across when you compare it with the other G8 countries. So we do have a problem. And I think internally we need to look and think about who are our advisors? Who are the advisors? Who are the people who are supposed to be leading this country forward? And how quickly can we get there? And that is why I think Keir Starmer and the Labour Party now is leading in the poll, because people are beginning to question the competencies of some of the individuals in the government.
Well, you mentioned Scotland and you mentioned Germany and then you mentioned Ireland. I think you should have said New Zealand, because that's where all the women are the ones that have been leading the way properly regarding COVID. I hear what you're saying and I can hear the passion there. I take the view to a certain extent on the middle ground by saying we're in a COVID uncharted water zone, and it's a new thing for everyone. I mean, David always say this: it's difficult, and David, you can back me up, and you can always confirm, or you can always deny, you can say whatever. David always say you got to treat every country and every area on their own merits. So you cannot assess the UK as America or assess the UK as different areas. Am I fair there, David?
I think that's fair to an extent. Yeah, I think so.
To an extent, yes. But we're supposed to be global leaders, and so people are supposed to be looking to us for leadership. And if we are seeing around the world that we're falling short in some areas that people should be looking to us as, then it's questionable and questioning the people who are leading us.
I always question the issue about people getting sacked so easily.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting sacked just because everybody head's gonna roll. They're going BBC. So when are you gonna resign? And I'm saying, hang on a second. Get the person to sort it out first and tell them to go after. All I say is get them to be a part of that solution. Get them to.
But Sylbourne, the problem we have here is that some people don't have the competencies to sort it out, and that is the problem.
Yeah.
And so we need to look, some people in the eye and say you don't have the competencies, and it's not because. It's just probably not the right post for you. I'm not saying he cannot be in cabinet. I'm just saying maybe the education portfolio is not right for him. They probably move him to culture or someplace else. But sometimes we have to look at the facts before us and be objective and making those decisions.
All right.
So what Keima is saying is that you need to look him in the eye and say, in the true apprentice style, you're fired.
You're fired.
You're fired. Well, if that's the case, then is Kamala Harris black or Asian?
She's both. She's both. Much like Obama was both.
I mean, it's a big thing there in the States. I mean, I have not watched it really, but I've been watching people. Jamaicans are saying, "Oh, they're deflated because she didn't mention Jamaica or so." Or in a recent speech, and they've been talking about Asian, and it is interesting. What I've been watching is whereby no one is talking about policies, but they're just saying, "I don't care about that. I don't care about the fact that she lock up black people. I don't care about that. I just want to get rid of Trump. Just want to get rid of Trump."
I think it's early stage. I think you've got a long time to go in this campaign. I think people are getting to know her. People are quite excited that we've got a black woman or a black and Asian woman at the top of the ticket, a vice president for the first time. It's a historic moment. So I think people are lapping it all up for the time being. But when it all picks up and, the campaigning becomes a little bit more robust and fiery when Trump starts to hit back, I think people will see things differently and start to really question you know, her past and her competencies and her past record, really. So it's for now, I think we're enjoying it. But I think later on she's going to really need to stand up and sort of well, stand up for her record, really.
Mm. And Keisha, what do you think? I don't know if you've been following a lot with Biden and Kamala Harris and how they've been actually doctoring or ensuring, monitoring the recent Democratic convention where everything is virtual now. Michelle Obama is virtual. Everybody's virtual. Everybody's singing the praises. It's interesting, isn't it? Everybody cuss off each other during the primaries. Everybody cussing off each other. And all of a sudden, everybody's now supporting Bernie Sanders. I support him. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Oh, we love each other. And before they were at each other's throat. Same thing with Clinton's as well. And Obama, they said, was holding back a bit for Biden. But everybody has come together, close ranks, because they just want to get rid of Trump. Is that policy, really? Where are the policies? Where's the economic?
Sylbourne, if you have a common goal or common objective, you have to set aside some of the differences that you have to focus on that goal. And that's what's happening here. So people who are, who disagree, they're now coming together because they have one purpose, and that is to get rid of Trump or to set Trump aside so that Biden and Kamala could lead the US. As I said last week, I mean, we need a new type of leadership, and I'm hopeful for this ticket. But to be honest, I haven't been as excited as I was when the first time I heard of Obama and his first speech. I wasn't even. I had the television on, but I wasn't really watching the television when I just suddenly heard Obama started at the convention, and he opened his mouth. The first thing he said, I just looked up and I thought, wow, that's going to be the next president of the United States. And that moment is what actually just like gave me that excitement. And unfortunately, at the moment, I don't have that excitement. It's quite interesting to see if that excitement will pick up at some stage. But at the moment, I can see what's happening, which is just people becoming unified and they're mobilizing their base.
Yes.
You refer to the ethnicity of Kamala that is needed, because she needs to appeal to those people who look like her. The black black group, the Indian Asian group. So those type of people, you target those people that look like yourself, and likewise, people tend to actually vote for people that or support the same ethnic group or person as themselves. So that as a start, as a base, that's important. So the nationality is important when it comes to politics.
But what about the contents of a person's character? Why is it about color? Contents of a person's character. That's what Marcus garvey said. That's what they speak about. The contents of a person's character, the policies. It's all about.
Yes, but still, Bond, the reality is, content of person character, policies, all that is good and well. But when you first see somebody, you first see what they look like. So you first see their skin color, for example. And so therefore you want somebody to look like you, or represent you. And you're hopeful that person, once the person take position, that they'll actually represent your policies as well, or look at your policy, the things that you're interested in. Not necessarily always the case. A lot of time people are disappointed because somebody who they may vote for into government may look like them, and then obviously the policies or what they're saying in the end doesn't represent the person who voted for them. So this doesn't always work.
Any final word, David?
Yeah, I'm excited about the ticket. I think it's something that's different. If you just look at the group of politicians, VP and president elect, she's different completely. She's female. She's black. She's younger. There's so many differences. So I think it gives the Democratic Party a little edge. I agree that politics does matter. I agree that the policies do matter, and they'll come out into the wash. But what the politics has done of late is been quite divisive, and you touched on that in regards to the Democratic lead up. And now the collectivity between them, and the smiles and the want and desire to be the Democratic Party that's leading the nation in America, and that's just politics at the end of the day, as Keisha has quite rightly said, and so it really is a kind of, for me, as an outsider living in this part of the world, it really is anybody but Trump versus Trump supporters, and that's what it is.
There's no one about Trump, is it?
No, I'm just saying that's what it's viewed as. It's viewed as anybody but Trump versus the hardcore Trump supporters. And as I said, the politics that comes out may not be so poignant with people this time around. The messaging has to be simple. From if the Democratic Party wants to win, but from a VP point of view, I think it's a good pick, and I'm hopeful that there's a degree of positivity in regards to the Democrat Party winning this time around.
Well, there's a new level of politics which is happening where they don't go with the flow. In Jamaica right now, you're having the dub plate politics. That's what people have dubbed it. People have dubbed it the dub plate politics because everybody's going after what? Seen to be as personalities. Keisha, you said it's what you see first, or KEIMA, you said it's what you see first. And based on what is happening in Jamaica, there's a new style of politics. Guys, just indulge me for a second. Let me just play this. Indulge me. I'll just remove a couple of persons. Just 1 second. Indulge me for
Lisa Anna go bust them bubble and walk out everybody in a trouble and face have been up them a struggle them a cuddle. Lisa make everybody just a grumble and Lisa make Jamaica look good. Southeast and them a boom 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 boom. Lisa body boom boom. Walk out Lisa your body boom 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 boom. Lisa Anna none of them right.
put my speaker back on. Let me just come back. You guys can all hear me, yes?
Yes.
You can hear me. I'm just getting David back in. Okay. What you saw there now is the new order and the new style of politics in Jamaica. When I had a show the other day, people were saying it's not new because in Trinidad they do that, whereby they play the music, they bring the young people in, and then they fuel it with policies. And I called it last night, not going with the flow, whereby politics has taken on a level now. What's your thoughts on this, Paul? Is this about personality? Well, politics is always about personality at the same time, isn't it?
Well, personality is important. You know, you need something, you know, to attract people, to get people to listen to you. And the best way to do that is through music. You know, if you've got the right tune, you've got the right beat, people are going to start, okay, pay attention. And then you could start talking about your policies. And I think it's a very, very good, engaging approach. I think, of course, you've got to look at your dynamics of the different type of people that you are engaging. You want to engage a whole demographic of people. And the music might attract a lot more young people. And you need to mobilize that base. You need to get people excitable about your campaign for them to go out and vote. And that's what music does. And I think a lot of MPs now have caught on to that, because a big part of politics, you know, is charisma. You know, a lot, if you look at in history and see some of the people who has won massively landslide victories, if you think about Tony Blair, if you think about Bill Clinton, if you think about Obama, these are charismatic people. And a lot of times they use music, they use the celebrities to get people to listen to their campaign, to come to their campaigns, and for them to get involved in politics and actually listen to their policies. So that's, I think, is a very engaging approach. And a lot of times, as I said, those politicians who are able to do that tend to win. So that's a good start.
Okay, David?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. I think it's a degree of positivity within an election that is being called quite quickly. And it needs to try and encourage people to have a degree of positivity, as I say, especially with what's going on with regards to COVID. There's many ways to look at this particular situation, but for me, it's positive, it's fun, it's fresh, it's dynamic. It's all positive, and to encourage again people from the younger generation, people also from all generations. If you're encouraged by music, Jamaica in itself is heavily invested in music and culture, and entrepreneurship. So from a music point of view, why wouldn't you? And if you look through history from regards to politics in Jamaica, from the early 70s, 80s. You know, there have been issues in regards to the way that politics has been, you know, in terms of the negativity surrounding it and some of the issues surrounding it. So, you know, to have this as a dub plate election, I think is a fun thing. It's fresh, and as I said to you yesterday, Sylbourne, I'm just waiting to see who's got the best bogle. That's what I want to see. A big bogle. You know, best bogle. Whichever the leaders comes out with the best bogle, I'm for them.
But David, I keep saying to you, David, bogle, old stuff, man. You need to find.
The old stuff is getting recycled. It's all a cycle. Life is a circle. Life is a circle. It's all cyclical. So bring back the bogle.
KEIMA, what's your thoughts on it?
Oh, KEISHA, Sylbourne, you meant, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely, David and KEIMA, but you know, the reality, Sylbourne, is the electorates or voters, they should never be underestimated at all. And so I think that the electorates are able to see through an individual if they lack substance. So irrespective of whatever they come with at the start, whether to attract you or to entice you, or to just draw the audience to them, if they don't have something other than just music or beauty or fame or popularity or great personality, it would not go any further than that, you know, at a certain stage. So I think it works. It's great. I mean, the creativity is so important. You had Barack Obama at the beginning of his campaign. He targeted the base by using social media. That was very strategic in his approach. And clearly, what we have here is someone else using music as a strategy to entice or to draw a certain group or people. But obviously, knowledge, information matters, and if they lack substance, you know, the electorate will see through that.
You know, I look at it and I think about someone blowing a bogle and saying, "Heary, heary, heary, heary," you know, like when they say the king is born or someone, "Heary, heary," bring everybody. So what it seemed like the dub plate is doing is bringing everybody, attracting them, getting them enticed. And then next week now, over 3 days, there's going to be the leaders' election, the leaders' debate. There's going to be the finance minister's debate, and there's going to, I believe, young ministers' debate as well. So in a way, it is bringing them to the table. So the music is nice, Lisa is nice, Bro God is nice. I like the one with Peter Bunting and Stomping with Styler G, because I did something about I did a rap one time, lockdown on Styler G, lockdown. I'm gonna see if I can find that rap again and play for David. You know, lockdown.
Can you bogle to it or not?
I can bogle, man. When I first I forget how to do the bogle again. I didn't the bogle. I mean, it's not like my break dancing and spinning my head and stuff like that. You know, it's about in the vocals. But yeah, I think it is good, and I believe that once they come in now, then the policies will suck it to them, and then that's where the meat is going to be, and I think it's important. At one point, I was thinking that is the government stepping down to bring them up, or is it the government stepping down to a level? I was thinking on that, stepping down to a level. Or is it that they are realigning themselves, aligning themselves with a key populace, which is the youths? And hence the reason why.
I think the government needs to do whatever it takes to engage and get people involved. I think here you see, I think over, we talked about COVID earlier, where the government has been texting people as well earlier on about wearing your face mask, that sort of thing. So whatever it is, governments need to do, particularly around election time, whatever it takes, whether it's posting your leaflets to the doors or, I mean, that sort of seems very boring, but I think you need to really excite people, you know, because on a day-to-day basis, if you talk to individuals, how many people are engaged in politics on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people aren't. But when it comes to on election times, that is where you really need to get to people. You really need to be able to talk to people one-to-one, and you need to talk to them in a language that they understand. And music is one of those ways to do that, you know. So it's not. I don't think it's about coming down to people. I think it's meeting people where they are in order for you to communicate with them
and taking them to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. I agree totally. James Singleton said, I know we moved past it, but if the electorate sees through, I have to ask why Trump is not a fit president.
That's for Keisha.
Yeah. Why is Trump not a fit president?
James, I have not a clue. Why are you doing this to me, James?
Yeah. Who's on the other line, Sylbourne? Okay. Nathaniel is on Instagram. I've got Dr. David Burton, you know David, and Keisha Allen. We have anointed Keisha and KEIMA as honorary Jamaicans.
Yes.
So they can speak on the thing. Right, David? We get honorary.
That's it. Yeah, they're Jamaican.
Honorary Jamaican.
That's it.
And
this show entitles you to citizenship and frequent travel to Jamaica.
Absolutely.
Whenever you want.
James Singleton, our resident after show session jam debater, which we go on Instagram, is also honorary Jamaican as well.
But he has to bogle. He has to bogle. So
I've
given him the link.
He's actually asking what is bogle. Oh, you send him a link as to what bogle is.
I send him a link. Yeah. And upon that evidence, we can assess.
I'm gonna do it in front of a Jamaican flag, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, what is happening? This is where we just jam a bit. So I want to thank you. We didn't touch on the issue regarding black women with hair who's affecting them getting job prospects, and also another topic was about people are getting annoyed and frustrated with working from home now. As well. Yeah, I don't know if anybody want to say anything quickly on that bit there about frustrated about working from home.
Well, I'm not getting frustrated. I'm very much happy. I'm really happy that I'm actually really happy that that we are in a position now where the employers have to reflect as to whether this policy all along and telling people that they have to come into work to work was actually the right approach. Now we can really see that people should be trusted to get on with working and delivering at home, delivering the work that's part of them at home. They can do it, and it's more, to me, it's more efficient, it's more effective. I understand that CIPD, KEIMA HR professional people organization, they are beginning to campaign for this flexible type of working to be made mandatory, and so that the government should actually implement this, make this law. And I believe that, I totally was be supporting that campaign. So yeah, I agree. Completely working from home, happy with that. I'm actually surprised that people are feeling uncomfortable. I don't know who are these two people, KEIMA.
Yeah, maybe it's two persons that they did a poll on.
Well, no, there's a number of people. There's a number of people who, and I think we can't ignore that. There's a number of people who depend on going into work to alleviate some of their stress and the mental health, and we talked about it.
Stress at home. That's in your own house.
But no, I mean, if you live alone, and there's some people who live alone, so going into work means you have those social interactions with other people. Yes. And you find as well, there's some people when they work from home, they will say they work a lot harder. I mean, they don't want to leave their computers, they don't get up and have their breaks, and it's difficult for them. So mentally, it's the flip side. So some people find it a lot tougher. And if you have children working at home, sometimes if you've got children and you're working from home, it's harder for you to do the home working and still concentrating at the same time at your work. So there's obviously mixed messages. I think if it works for some individuals, I think it's great, but we can't ignore the fact that some people still are struggling with the idea of working from home.
Well, Keisha, my daughter said the exact same thing. James Singleton worked from Starbucks.
And some people working from the beaches as well, I heard.
Yeah, one of my sons is still working from home. He's loving his insurance. It's safer for him indeed.
Yeah, and, I mean, it's brilliant. You can work from Starbucks, work on the beach, go to the park. Just deliver the work on time. Set your target and deliver it, and no problem at all. Just get on with life.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining this week. And if you want to go over to the After Jam session on Instagram, SYLBOURNETv, you can pop over there as well. Who knows? Nathaniel Pete is there. Nathaniel, maybe we should talk about Jamaica with elections. If you want to, let's do that. Send me an invite. Wow Factor, Kathy, if you want to do that. Or you guys don't want to talk about Jamaican politics because they're going to say, Which side are you on? Are you red or green? Let me see. Keisha, you're in green. And
Yes,
KEIMA,
Mr.
It's
Holden.
funny. We didn't even plan it. We did.
David, what's going on, man? Gonna labor
I'm
right
Team
on
Bogle, man. I'm Team Bogle. Do you not understand? Team Bogle.
But it's exciting. I think Jamaican politics have moved to a point whereby people, when they meet up each other, PNP or JLP, they still enjoy each other and have fun at the same time and see who can dance better. And say, there's a dog. I'm sorry I didn't have a picture. They were painting a dog green of recent days. Dog was green. It's a JLP dog, man. And a donkey was taking a PNP donkey. No, a PNP person was getting to be nominated, and he was on a donkey, and the donkey didn't want to go to the nomination booth. So people are saying that donkey was not canvassed properly because it's a Labour donkey. That was really interesting. And Think It, Plan It, Do It Now is the book that is Keisha is boasting. I don't know if Anthony's on. Anthony, Think It, Plan It, Do It Now.
If Anthony's on, tell him that I got my copy yesterday and I read the first chapter and I'm really excited. This is actually like a workbook, so you just can't read or spend the whole day reading the whole thing. You've got to actually do some work. So, yes. As in, like, a commitment statement is my first task. Can you believe it? But anyway, I'll let you guys know. This is Anthony. I've got the book. Let's let you know.
Yes. So it is. So it is. Think it, plan it, do it now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up now. And for those who want to join us on the Instagram, we can have about 30 minutes over there where we sort of do a recap. As well, I want to thank you because tomorrow I'm going to have a young person. Well, we're all young. I just try to get to the people that of my level, the young youths, you know, as I'm a millennial, going into a millennial. Sorry, David. Sorry, Keisha. I'm leaving you guys. You know, we're going to talk with Olivia Jennings. And Sunday, all being well, with Matunda Makula, former public defender, and Dr. Kevin Brown. If not, I've got to get Dr. David, if anything, where we're going to try to get someone from the JLP or someone from the PNP on election watch. Someone from the JLP or someone from the PNP on election watch. So far, I've not got any confirmation yet because they're all busy campaigning and just for them to engage with the diaspora. So I'm looking forward to that this Sunday at 9 p.m. Right? No, actually, I think about 7 p.m. We do a different time here as well. And so thank you very much. And remember to like and subscribe to the Silbourne Show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and everything. JD Jones, blessings to all. JD Jones Daily, tuning in all the way from Beantown, Boston, but I'm a born Stratton, living in the USA.
Monstration, yes.
Okay, right. I got some
my people.
Okay, Lauren.
Hey, what happened to Jamaica? You just dashed your way.
Listen, I got a whole lot of citizenship, so you know we're so many different. When I get to the immigration office, you know, it depends on what it is. Like, yeah, Jamaican.
Okay. One Caribbean. It's okay.
We're one people.
Carry on. I get it. Okay.
All in one. So, guys, thank you very much, and it's a good time. And see you guys, team next week Thursday as well. Even though we chat every day.
Bye bye.
Thank you, guys. Cheers. Bye bye. Thank you.